So we're going to have a look at two reports. The first is from the Institute of Chartered Accountants for England and Wales, and then the second report is from the FRC. So the reports from the Institute of Chartered Accountants, they focus more on audit issues. So I've just pulled out the relevant financial reporting issues because those are what we want to talk about today. So these issues are from the 2020 and 2021 reports. The first issue is going concern. And no surprises, we're going to talk more about that later on, so I'm not going to spend too much time on that. The next issue that they found was needed a bit of improvement was long-term construction contracts. So you'll know yourself from long-term construction contracts are quite difficult, they can be quite tricky, there can be a lot of complexities involved there. And that's made even worse in terms of IFRS 15. So that's more from an IFRS 15 point of view. But what is interesting is what will happen to FRS 102 in the next triennial review to try and account for the changes in IFRS 15. So that's going to be really interesting to watch for. Another issue that they found is property valuations. And I think we all expect that, we all know that property prices are on the increase, but it's quite important to realize that that's not straightforward and it's not an even spread as well. So we have seen in the hotel industry, for example, that there just aren't very many sales happening at the moment. So it is quite difficult to value hotel assets at the moment because the industry and the market is so slow. So we've seen material valuation uncertainties relating to hotel properties. So it's quite important to remember the different types of properties that you might be dealing with and how that impacts on your property valuations.
But like in general, property valuations are going up and up and up in the current economy. But you've got to look at sectoral based. You've got to look. There's geographic impact here. But when the property value is not just about the bricks and mortar, when the property value is intrinsically linked to the trade, if it is in one of the sectors that is adversely affected by COVID, this is where we're seeing property valuations drop. So on the surface, it's not something that people are on the lookout for, but across the entire spectrum of companies, we're seeing certain companies where property valuations are impaired. Now, you've got to watch the impairment of property valuations. We're talking here today, we're not talking about from an audit perspective. Obviously, you're playing a whole different game if you're auditing in terms of forming an opinion. But what you also have to watch linked into property valuations is you have to watch how this ties into loans and covenants and loan agreements, and where there is question marks over property valuations, ICAEW are identifying this as a problem, but where there is issues on property valuations, it's not just a property valuation, it can have a knock-on effect in terms of loans and loan covenants, and it can have a knock-on effect then in terms of the first point, which we're going to talk about in more detail in a few minutes, which is going concern.
Yeah, perfect. And then the last one that they identified is business combinations. And again, that is just a really complex area where there's a lot of moving parts and it can be really difficult to account for.